Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. This is Not Fox and today we'll be taking a look at what I think might be one of the most interesting topics in the Marathon franchise, the compilers, also known as the Sifit. Before we start though, I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. I had no idea where to go with this video when I first started. I wrote a few scripts, scrapped a few scripts, but eventually I landed on this topic. Out of what I've researched so far, this subject stuck out to me quite a bit and overall I think it'll be a good kicking off point for future videos. I will say I've historically taken a more off-the-cuff approach to content creation, so script writing has been a massive change of pace for me so far, but as they say, practice makes perfect, so please bear with me as I iron out the kinks. All that being said though, I hope you all enjoyed the channel's first step into the lore of Marathon. Compilers. Silent, hovering marvels of cyber organic synthesis. Protected by armor of an unknown composition, bodies shrouded behind long crimson robes. A single green orb pierces through their blood-red cloaks, glowing with an intense energy. If you've played any of the Marathon games, heck, even Destiny for that matter, you've probably caught wind of the compilers at some point along the way. These alien adversaries were introduced all the way back in 1994 with the release of Marathon 1. Since their debut, they've become a staple of the franchise and have appeared in every game in the series since. Along with their recurring appearance, their role and importance of the compilers in the Marathon story has evolved considerably with each game, now being one of the most integral and lore-rich species in the franchise. Now, who are the compilers exactly? The compilers serve an alien empire called the Four, the same group who attacked the Marathon colony ship in 2794. Lila, one of the ship's 3 onboard AI, gives us this description of the Four and their military. I have summarized all the information that I have gathered on the aliens so far. Four are generally thinner and lighter than humans and are superbly adept for low-gravity environments. Durandal told me that there are many clans of Four, each physically distinct from the other, but my summary only includes 2 of them. Only 2 clans of the Four have been examined. The Fighter carries a shock staff, which is capable of attacking at different settings. The Trooper is armored for vacuum conditions and carries a combination explosive and impact projectile weapon, which is similar to your AR-75. The Four seem to have enslaved a number of other races. The Hulk is an enormous and rather slow creature, but it is incredibly strong. The science report indicated that it had no body fat and therefore had to be fed often to keep it active. One crew member reported seeing one of these creatures pointing to itself and mumbling "Drenal" right before it picked Johnny up by the shirt and crushed him against a pillar. The science staff had difficulty finding a good specimen of the Sifit, or compiler, to autopsy. The only specimen autopsied was almost completely destroyed, but it was obvious that the compilers are cyborgs of some kind. The biological component of the compiler is so closely linked to the machine that it could never survive without it. The compiler's actual body is very small, resembling closely a mammalian brain, except that the neurons are much finer and far more complex. Unlike the other races subjugated by the Four, the compilers are controlled entirely by force rather than fear. This is done simultaneously through each of their cybernetic bodies. Durandal, Layla's rogue counterpart, informs you that if you kill their master, they will revolt, and you can probably guess how that played out. At the end of Marathon 1, you free the enslaved compilers aboard the colony ship, after which they aid you in repelling the Four's attack. Once you carry out Durandal's instructions, the freed Sifit align themselves with the rampant AI, who they now view as their savior, and vice versa. The Four are defeated and sent on the retreat. Durandal commandeers a Four attack ship and sets out in search of the Sifit homeworld, bringing the player character against our will and his legion of compilers with him. It's revealed in Marathon 2 that the Four invaded the Sifit homeworld Lawan roughly 1,000 years before the events of the series. As the invasion swept across the planet, the remnants of the Sifit clan sought refuge in the Citadel of Antiquity, an ancient structure which they used as a stronghold during the assault. The Four resorted to using radiation weapons to weed out the holdouts inside of the Citadel. The Sifit retreated deeper within the structure, attempting to escape what they called the burning air. In the end though, their attempt to escape was unsuccessful and all inside the Citadel perished. Those who survived the invasion were taken captive by the thousands. Out of these, the Sifit who were assigned military service became the compilers we all know and love. Before we get ahead of ourselves though, let's take a look at the Sifit clans and the backstory behind them. While exploring the Citadel, you find a terminal with a Sifit legend that details their history. In primordial space, timeless creatures made waves. These waves created us and the others. Waves were battles, and the battles were waves. Fleeing all work in Kakantur, Iro and Pythia settled upon Lawan. They brought the Sifit, servants who began to shape the deserts of Lawan into marsh and sea, rivers and forests. They made sisters for Lawan to protect and maintain the paradise. When the working Kakantur came, Pythia was killed, and Iro, in anger, flung the working Kakantur into the sun. The sun burned them, but they swam on its surface. Iro became an angry master, bleeding for his failure, grieving for the loss of Pythia. He broke the Sifit into 11 clans and spread them over Lawan. And he spoke, yet covered in blood from his exertion. I, Iro, who was your master, have failed to preserve you. Take your loyalty to guide you, and live upon the paradise that you built for me. On another Sifit terminal, we learn the names of these clans and more on how they came to be. Before he disappeared, the master called the 11 elders. One by one, they came before him to hear his words. Each heard their clan names. Sifit Lar, Sifit Ra, Sifit Na, Sifit Ka, Sifit Vir, Sifit Ra, Sifit Val, Sifit Shur, Sifit Nur, Sifit Yor, and Sifit Kur. Thus were the sacred clans given names and ranks, the 11 numbers and the 11 sacred clans. The final words of the master came to the elders. Don't mistake your rank and number for superiority. The oldest child may learn from the youngest. Let's unpack this a little bit. As we saw before, the Sifit aren't originally native to Lawan, but instead were brought there by two entities named Iro and Pythia. Based on what I could gather, the identity of these two figures remains largely unknown. However, I did read through an old thread on the Marathon story page that suggested this Iro figure is referencing a race called the Yarrow, yet another integral piece in the Marathon lore. This topic alone would necessitate its own video, but to put it briefly, the Yarrow are an extremely advanced race that used to live in the galaxy but have since disappeared. Only traces of their existence can be found, one primary example being the technology they left behind. We learned from Tycho, the Marathon's third AI who also went rogue, that the Yarrow disappeared from the galaxy millions of years ago, leaving behind a number of civilian and military installments. These locations were built on the moons of many habitable worlds, and the majority of the technology used by the Four were taken from these locations. We also learned that the Yarrow had the ability to warp entire planets between solar systems. I wonder where we've heard that before. In Marathon 2, we're told that the 11th clan, the Sifit Kur, left their world for Kalia, the third sister of Lawan, with the hopes of building a new home. After 1001 orbits, they were ultimately forgotten, until the all-powerful Iro sent Kalia out to the stars. Conflict arose between the Sifit Nur and the Sifit Lar. The Sifit Kur did not intervene and were seen as indifferent towards the situation. On the other hand, we learned that the Sifit Kur could not fight in this affair and were being restrained by a figure named Sibith. Who is the Sibith character anyway? Honestly, I couldn't tell you for the longest time, since his identity is never really elaborated on in-game. After some digging though, I did stumble across some information outside of the games that we can reference. According to the Marathon story page, Chris Geisel of Bungie and Double Out Software stated that Sibith was a Sifit royalty, a creature that was a failed Yarrow. Interestingly, the page also states that one terminal was never included in the full release of Marathon Infinity, the third game in the original trilogy. The Lost Terminal could originally be found in the level Confound Delivery, later replaced with a hole in the wall where it used to be. Thankfully though, Chris and fellow Bungie Double Out developer Greg Kirkpatrick provided the original text for the Lost Terminal to the Marathon story page. Now, when we are so near our end, I think upon the fate of our ancestor Sifit Isamnir, who went before the Sifit Kur while they pleaded for peace. On hearing our just grievances, Sibith addressed our ancestor thus: Of these 1,000 forms of Iro, which is the very first? In the hearts of the retainers before me are 1,000 thoughts and 10,000 imaginings. Of these, which is the very first one? Sifit Isanir replied, Who is this Iro? Sibith caught him by a spline and flung him into a pit. 1,000 of our lifetimes do not equal one moment over Isa's pit. Minor spelling differences aside, we get some pretty remarkable insights from this resurfaced information, Sibith's identity being one of them. First and foremost, we see that Sibith is a royal of the Sifit, which Geisel describes as a failed Iro. Could this mean that the royals are offshoots from the Yarrow? I'll leave that speculation for another time. In Marathon 2, we get more insight into the royals from Fitha, a Sifit compiler. I am Fitha, Sifit compiler. Your deeds reach far into the Sifit consciousness. The vile force slave us to more powerful machines, but we resist them. Freedom will mean nothing without royalty. We are but the body and they are mind. Find them, and all Sifit will be your ally. The royalty must exist because we exist. It took us a long time to realize this. Mechanisms are in place to cripple the Four when the unit is of one mind. You kill me, but you free the unit whole. Based on what Fitha tells us, it seems as though the Sifit share some sort of collective consciousness. We might also infer that the Sifit consciousness has been split somehow, and that they are waiting to rejoin with one another. We're also told in Marathon 2 that the Sifit clans still on Lawan met with one another, sharing the information they had on the 11th clan. We also learned that a message was left behind pertaining to their return. Kalia, whom we have taken, between Eloa and Tajia, all in a line. Replace Kalia with the marsh. Take the place to be the mark. Mark the time from our exodus every 459.231 rotations. Search the Tegea side. Quarter way to the sun, around and under the marshes. When all are one, the Civic Cur will return. In return, they did. At the end of Marathon 2, a massive battle takes place between the 4 and Durandal's forces. Tycho, having allied himself with the alien empire after Marathon 1, helps lead a fleet determined to eradicate Durandal and his army, and come close to doing so. Deep under the Citadel, the player character revives an ancient Sithid AI who refers to himself as Thoth. Once awakened, the AI calls the Lost Clan back to Lawan, warping Kalia into the system with impeccable timing. The Civic Cur turn the tide of the battle and help repel the 4 fleet. Durandal strikes down Tycho's ship, marking his demise, in this timeline at least. When the Civic Cur return to assist in the battle, we finally get a good look at their appearance. The members of the 11th clan look markedly different from the compilers we're used to, residing instead in asymmetrical 3-pronged bodies. They still float though, so that's some common ground, I guess. The Civic Cur also have a green orb, this time situated on the left side of their bodies. A large metallic orb is affixed to their right side as well, which might be similar to the heads of the compilers, but that's just speculation on my part. The bodies of the Civic Cur are a dark bluish-gray color and have what looks to be a tail protruding from their backs. In the recent Marathon extraction shooter, mentions of the Sithid, and the 4 for that matter, are few and far between, at least on the surface. Brief allusions and references of them can be parsed out from log entries and other in-game collectibles, however Bungie has chosen to keep that side of the story mostly under wraps for now. The Marathon reboot's only in-game compiler can be found in Vault 7 of Cryo Archive, serving as the boss for the map. How or why a compiler is still on board the Marathon is its own rabbit hole, but it's very much there nonetheless. After defeating the compiler, you receive a contraband tier item called a compiler ganglion. Now, I'm no expert in biology, or alien biology for that matter, but after some brief research, I found that ganglia are clusters of neurons or nerve cells outside of the central nervous system. By that definition, the compiler ganglion would likely be a piece of the compiler's peripheral nervous system, if my interpretation is correct. The question is though, why this? We're given this log entry after obtaining the item. Overview. It's only a sliver of data, cycling through alien circuitry, but it weighs on your soul like the heart of a collapsing star. Every time you hold it, there's a hum you can't hear, screaming in the back of your memory. It feels old and eternal. It feels like the math of a universe no one has discovered, and it feels angry. Disappointed in the limited promise of your bio-cybernetic expiration date. Uses: impossible, eternal. Remark: how do we go back to everything we were supposed to be once we've beheld even this meager piece of all that can exist? As we can see, the reboot gives us a whole new angle on the nature of the compilers. We also learn that an underground cult has been formed on Tau Ceti 4, their beliefs centering around the compilers and a mysterious deity that is likely a Workenkakanter. Whether or not this group is related to the Arachne cult, one of the in-game factions you receive contracts from, is unknown to me, but they do seem to share a similar reverence for time. Grasping for straws here, I know, but it could be a promising train of thought. Several log entries can be found relating to the cult on Tau Ceti, the first of which lays the groundwork for their beliefs.
There are stars we see.
Stars.
Do you see?
I see.
There are stars we see and understand as distant light.
Yes.
We speak now of other things. We speak now, and do we listen? And do we listen? Good. Good. We speak now of other things. Of the formless devourers made of dream who sleep in burning prisons. The shapeshifters sated by the cascading imaginings of primitive sentience. Omnivores of intellect and the energies of waking life.
Awake and dream.
Before time, they wordlessly spoke the universe into existence. We speak softly of these things and thank eternity.
Eternity, uncaring and pure.
For the harbingers who walk amongst us.
Crimson cloaked.
Angels of red, blessed hosts of synthetic evolution, wardens of the purest knowledge, hear us, cartographers of the universal fabric, vivisecting matter and time, to catalog reality. We offer all to you, our flesh and emotion, our thoughts, our desires, fears, lust, and hopes unrequited. We offer ourselves to be mapped eternal in your library of cosmic truth.
The cult views the compilers as angels, wardens of purest knowledge, harbingers of a force as old as eternity. To me, this could point to a few things: a working Cacunter, the Yarrow, or something else entirely. We read about these ancient beasts beforehand, one of which Eero plunged into Lauon's burning sun. Why the Siphic compilers are associated with what is likely a working Cacunter here is also unknown to me. Perhaps it's a misinterpretation on the cultist part, or maybe even a warping of reality by one of these timeless beasts. Now, we're delving into theory territory, but first I want to dive into a phenomenon from the reboot called the Anomaly. Appearing on Tau City 4, the Anomaly can be seen in-game on the map Dire Marsh. It looks almost like an aurora erupting from the ground, fountains of radiant energy flowing from massive fissures. Not much has been revealed about the Anomaly so far. Heck, even the colonists don't seem to know what it is either. We learn that approaching and entering into the Anomaly produces time dilation effects and, to some extent, a warping of reality, both of these being traits associated with a working Cacunter. Recall how they've been described up until this point: timeless creatures who wordlessly spoke the universe into existence. They created by making waves, the waves became battles, and the battles became waves. In Marathon Infinity, which explores several alternate timelines around Marathon 2, Tycho uses a Yarrow superweapon called the Trixeme, translated as Early Nova, on the brink of his defeat at Lauon. By doing so, he inadvertently frees the celestial beast locked away by the Yarrow, producing the same effects that were described before. The connection between the Anomaly and a working Cacunter would also explain why the cultists would even know about this thing in the first place. These things seem to reside in space normally, and neither the colonists nor the UESC seem to know much about what lies beyond the horizons in the reboot. This begs the question though, if one of these things is near Tau Ceti 4, why haven't we seen it? Well, simply put, this might not be a question of it being near Tau Ceti 4, but rather in it. Without going off on too much of a side tangent, we're given a very interesting description of the Anomaly from this log. Proposal that the entirety of the phenomenon we have come to know as the Anomaly is, in fact, a shared delusion. While incidents of mass psychogenic illness are rarely this widespread, they are so inconsistently studied and varied in presentation that it cannot be ruled out. C.S. Pryor referenced the so-called shriek epidemic among orbital station workers in Sol, or the starvation delusions observed in Mars inhabitants diagnosed with post-famine polyphagia. In our case, the origin of the delusion would be severe trauma caused by. No evidence that the Anomaly's origin is connected to the Redacted, but respectfully, we have no ability to estimate their military capability or the sophistication of their weaponry. We can't rule out a weapon that was planted with a delayed detonation, an irresponsible rumor that would cause mass panic without any evidence. Likely below the surface of the planet, a form of terrestrial radiation caused by natural substances present on Tau Ceti 4. Attempts to study this radioactive decay have been difficult, repeatedly impeded by AI malfunction. Most of our work must be done manually, which has slowed analysis considerably. Publishing this in opposition to my superiors, who have discouraged it, but I maintain it is not a new idea to suggest that a planet, as a complex system of biotic and abiotic components which regulate one another, is functionally alive. And like anything that is alive, it is driven towards self-preservation and survival. In the event of a major disruption, a threat to its existence, it is believable that the planet organism would react defensively, not unlike the human immune system. Multiple theories about its origin. There is evidence to support that the Anomaly is not merely communicating with us, but that it is itself a language. The imperceptible speaker must therefore be an alien intelligence. This may take the form of a connected, collective intelligence existing underground, like a mycelial network. Overall, it seems as though the colonists' appraisal of the Anomaly has grown and shifted as they continue to research it. As we see here, there is evidence suggesting that the Anomaly not only originated from beneath Tau Ceti's surface, but is alive and sentient. Where this theory diverges, though, is the description of the Anomaly as a mycelial network within the planet, possibly a network of all the flora and fauna on Tau Ceti 4, which certainly sounds different than the working Cacunter. Could one of these beasts be trapped within the newly founded colony world? Could this be something else entirely, connected through the same universal fabric as described before. Hopefully time will tell. We'll have to wait and see while Bungie continues to expand on this. What does any of this have to do with the compilers though? Let's go back to a statement I made before. Bungie seems to be approaching the compilers from a much different angle than in previous games. We see from the compiler ganglion log that there is definitely some sort of temporal element surrounding it. We also see this quality pop up in the cultist log, where they describe the compilers as cartographers of the universal fabric, vivisecting matter and time to catalog reality. I'm honestly torn on how or why the compilers got these abilities in the reboot. Did they have them all along and we're just now hearing about it? The reboot is heavily suggested to be another alternate timeline after all, so could the plot dynamics be different here? From what we know, I could go either way. On the one hand, we know that the Working Cacantors effectively created the universe of Marathon, and it is implied that the Yarrow and Sifit were brought into existence with it, a fact that is further confirmed by the cult mantra we listened to before. I could see how the Yarrow and Sifit, having been around since the beginning of time pretty much, or close to it, are more intimately connected with the inner workings of the universe. On the other hand though, we see the Yarrow and Sifit fleeing from these primordial forces of creation and destruction, so I'm hesitant to put all my eggs in this one basket. All in all, the compilers of the Marathon reboot seem to deviate quite considerably from the ones before, despite looking pretty much identical to those in the original trilogy. They're given a much more cryptic, eldritch edge that suggests they, too, transcend time and existence to some degree. Where Bungie chooses to go with this, we'll have to see. The studio recently announced that several more years' worth of story is in the pipeline for the reboot. However, in light of the recent financial struggles plaguing Bungie and their parent company Sony, hopefully they can hold out long enough for these ideas to fully come to fruition. I'd like to know in the comments, what do you guys think about all this? Is there anything you'd like to see me cover next? Post your thoughts down below, and be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Until next time guys, I'll catch you all on the next one.